or you just heard about all these different things on YouTube or throughout your travels of meditation or eating, or how all this stuff can transform someone's life, and you're just finding yourself not able to find that path or your own way. Well, check this episode out as Tim Berzins shares with us a few things that you can start doing today in order to change your life. Go from broken, feeling lost, stuck, troubled, to feeling awakened and aware and in control of your thoughts and your mind and your life. This episode is really powerful, guys. Can't wait to share Tim with you. Here we go.
Yeah.
Hey guys, welcome to the Plug Into Your Life podcast, where you learn all kinds of things spiritual to really plug into your life. I'm here with Timothy, and we are going to dive into some transformation stuff. If you guys are struggling with meditation or developing new habits, or just interested in general about spiritual tools, this is the spot. So Tim, welcome, man. Thank you for being on here. And I'm curious. So getting to know you a little bit, I'm always interested in guys that are stepping into this space, because I don't know if you've noticed this, but in my experiences from going around town and just different events and spiritual leaders and stuff hosting events, it's like a 70-1 or 70-30 ratio for like women to guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to talk about that a little bit too, but so what was it like in your life prior to kind of discovering some of these tools, and where are you at now with that?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I'm happy to be here. Very excited to be on the podcast. Really looking forward to this conversation. Yeah. So for me, the big thing when I was first getting into all of this work was I was always someone who overthought a lot and had a lot of anxiety. As a child, I was super shy, had a really hard time just holding conversation with people. And it was one of these things where my problem was continuously getting in my own way, like listening to that overactive monkey mind that just has every worst case scenario possible planned out. And that's the only thing it focuses on. And so when I really got to a place where, I felt like I had potential that I wasn't utilizing, I gifts to share that regardless of whether, they were right for everyone, I felt like there was a calling within me that I needed to share something. So basically I got to the point of like, I gotta get out of my own way, and I got to figure out how to do this. So I think I kind of followed, what a lot of guys get into, which is sort of like that over fixation on success and wanting to like do, reading that, like the Tai Lopez reading a book a day kind of thing, and like just kind of consuming information. And that was good for a time, but it definitely came to a place where it started to become counterproductive, where I was just kind of almost addicted, right? Getting that dopamine hit of, oh, I learned something new. And it's like, well, is this actually useful? Is it actually helping you? Or is it just something that you're learning without any real cause? And the good thing about that, though, was some of the books recommended were books like Power of Now by Echart Tolle, A New Earth by him as well. There was a couple Osho books that I read early on that started really pushing that idea of meditation. And so it's one of those things that I was like, I'm open for whatever. I want to get myself moving forward to where what I want my life to be. And so I started meditating. And it was one of those things where at the beginning, I didn't know if I was doing it right. I didn't really feel like a lot of progress right away. And I would even like start to fall asleep during the meditation, because it was, my brain was not used to being quiet like that. And, I remember like a month into it, there was just a moment where I, took the lead and was like leading my group of friends around Philadelphia, something I would have probably not done before because I would have been shy or I would have been nervous. And I recognized that there was thoughts coming up that were those old thoughts, those old patterns, and those trends of conditioning, that instead of buying into it, I was actually separated from it, watching it happen. And so it was like, at the first time, I really had a choice between continuing to think what I've always thought and being identified with it, or actually having the space to grow something new, right? To grow a new conditioning pattern, a new thought pattern that was maybe going to serve me a lot better. And so my story with that, just to wrap that up real quick, is that ended up leading, all that work I was doing ended up leading to a internship working for a startup company in Florida. The brands we worked for were Kino Body and at the time Truth Nutra. Now it's called Umzu. And they're supplement companies and fitness companies. And so I worked on the marketing and the back end of all that. Had some pretty intense experiences. And that's when I sort of got into the Dispenza meditations. I know that we connect on those because you have a lot of really cool stories and some cool experiences around like your work doing meditation and following those things and releasing into the universe and seeing these magical things come back to you, these synchronous stuff. Yeah. So, I definitely think that the growth I had gained from meditation led to, this big experience of moving away and doing all, working for a new company and the excitement that comes with that, leaving all my friends and everything I knew from before, which was sort of like, a leap into the unknown, a leap. Yeah.
All right. I think we're trying to manifest some good internet here. So, all right. Third time's a charm. We got, where were we at here? Ending the.
Yeah. So we were talking a little bit about, my experience in Florida, and that's when I got into a lot of Dispenza meditations and started having some of those experiences that come from that. And had one particular experience, which maybe we can get into later, that was one of those like highly synchronistic, like could not deny any longer that there was some, subtle power, subtle force that was shaping things, and that you could actually have a relationship with that force. You could actually connect to it and then see real things change in your life. Unfortunately for me, it was a tumultuous, my whole life kind of like falling apart and moving in a different direction, which I now understand is, the life sort of trying to show me, this wasn't the direction you were supposed to be going. And there's a lot of stuff that you needed to break free of. And unfortunately, that often requires the dismantling of the old. And so holding on in the attachments to the old makes that a very painful experience. But once you stop being attached to things, you allow that ebb and flow and change, and then things get really beautiful. And so since then, obviously, I've moved back from Florida, and now I'm in Southern Delaware, where you are right now. And so I've been really just working on doing that inner growth and trying to share my gift with other people, tell my story, tell them some of the insights and wisdom that I've learned, and just have great conversations and continue to expand the network. Yeah.
Yeah. And you touched on a couple of beautiful things there. Like when you start getting into meditation and stuff, that initial, like, oh, I'm not doing it right. I can't stop my thinking. And I just came across this funny thing a few weeks back where someone said, don't think about donkeys. Mm-hmm. Well, what's the first thing you think about, right? It's like donkeys. And it's almost like this lesson of like, the more you're like trying like to not do something, it's like it evokes that that thing more, And then you brought up, letting go of your attachment to things, people, places. And I would even think those thoughts, these intrusive thoughts. And instead of trying to force it or change it or be frustrated with that, just allowing that process to happen and realizing that people, places, and things, there's a season for all that stuff. And sometimes the season changes. It sounds like you're going into summertime now. So
Let's hope so. Yeah. Dark night of the soul is no joke for sure.
Yeah.
It goes through a lot of that garbage that comes up. Right. So it's like, we're all conditioned to a certain amount of this just mental noise that we're holding on to, the story, right? We're attached to the story of who we are. And it's often that's what needs to go, is you have to identify as something other than you've identified in the past. So that's scary, stepping into the unknown like that.
Yeah. So if someone's listening and they're experimenting with meditation, maybe it sounds a little woo-woo or something, you brought up Dispenza. I love him because he does actual science behind it. And it's not just something I'm going to sit here and try to not think for 10 minutes. You put some intention behind that, and you can really do some stuff, really manifest things in your life, and realizing that you're the creator of your life. And, even that shift that you talked about, it's like you shifted your energy, and then all of a sudden you see that everything changes around you, and it's a really cool process. And if someone's listening and they haven't experienced that aha moment yet, what was that process like for you? I mean, did you just, okay, I missed meditation today, or is it like something you like forcing yourself to do, or like, where was that? How was that process for you?
Yeah. So like I said, when I first started meditating in the very beginning, that was when it was more of just like a chore, right? So I have to have this morning routine and I have to do these things because I'm, trying to manifest my potential and be successful, et cetera, et cetera. And, but like I said, if I stuck with it and I didn't really notice any changes, then after about 30 days out in the world, some little shift happened and I recognized I'm doing something different than I used to do. And it's because of the meditation. And I think for most people getting started, like it will feel like a chore initially, but the goal is to get to that place where you get feedback, because as soon as you get feedback, that's going to inspire you to keep meditating.
Yes.
Because now you recognize that you are the creator, like you said, you have that power. And if you can keep coming into touch with that power, there is no more higher leverage skill in the entire world and in all of experience than to connect to the power, that infinite power within you that creates worlds, that ability to actually manifest into the world. And it's not, you don't have direct control over it like through your ego. It's a very indirect control. It's a very released control, no resistance. Because if, like you said, if I resist thinking about the donkey, what am I going to think about? The donkey. Yeah. So instead I just have to say, cool, the donkey's here. And it's not a problem for me. I just move on to something else.
Yeah, it's like there's an elephant in the room, nobody wants to talk about it. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, let's, okay, the thought's coming in or whatever it is. Let's just bring it out and look at it. And then, okay, there it is. I can let it go. And all of a sudden the elephant just goes away. Mm-hmm. It's then you brought up manifesting, or I did. And it's like, that's the big caveat with manifesting. If you can stand up in your meditation as if the thing that you desire is already came to you, it's already mm-hmm. happened, like, and you can be there in that moment where it's done, and you stand up as if it's done, like you don't have to think about it, when, where, how, why. It's a really interesting lesson to learn with life in general, like even with relationships. If you're with a toxic person and you're just fighting to make it work and you're trying to do it, but just realizing that, okay, like maybe I shouldn't be fighting this anymore. And like you brought up with your life, that's not the path for you. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, like if you're constantly forcing everything, and I used to hustle like crazy, man, like working 70 hours a week, and then when I finally hired a coach, you do some coaching and life coaching mm-hmm. and stuff. It was like, okay, let's get a different perspective in here, which I think mm-hmm. what meditation does. It allows you to become familiar with, right? That's what it means, yourself. Yep. And all of a sudden, it's like a new perspective comes in, like you said, like you get these like random thoughts. You're like, well, that's not for me,
Exactly. Yeah. And so, I mean, if you think about like mechanistically what's happening, when you're meditating, you're actually creating space within yourself. And so when there's space around whatever that thought form or that pattern is, you are no longer conditioned or to identified with it, because it's like now there's you and the thing. And so it's like, how could a plant grow without space, right? If you just put a plant in a box, it's not going to grow. Yeah. You have to provide space. And so as you're meditating, what you're really doing is expanding your awareness, which is to say, providing more space, which mm-hmm. allows those old patterns to be evolved rather than getting stagnant and staying stuck there.
Yeah. And I also heard like 90%, or you think like 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day. Mm-hmm. 90% of those are from yesterday. 90% of those thoughts are negative thoughts. And it's like, if you believe that your energy or your thoughts have anything to do with your life, it's like, okay, well, let's take a look at that,
Yeah. That's where they say that when you turn 30, your personality is set and you're not going to change. But to me, that's old school, right? That's completely old school paradigm. We know that the brain is plastic. We know that it can change, that the gray matter is always evolving depending on, whatever you're adapting and the neurons that you're wiring together. And so it's like, yeah, maybe it becomes harder to change when you've gotten so much momentum. Like you think about it, like 60 years of momentum, believing that you are that story you're telling yourself.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's harder to break than, a 20-year-old who has that story. It's a lot easier to shift it, but it's not impossible. It's never impossible. All it takes, and it's actually just as easy. It just takes a little bit more time. It takes a little bit more attention and intention in order to do it.
Yeah, I always say this example of like, let's say you're walking through this like really tall weeds, they're up to your head or something. And you just walk that same path over and over every day, eventually that turns into a real path where you have ground and dirt and you're able to walk on it. Well, now, you think, well, I want to go over there, and it's like, it's uncomfortable. It doesn't feel right. Your body starts freaking out. Like, oh, yeah. I remember like starting out, it took me like 6 years to change.
Yeah. Well, it's forever. It's an ongoing thing, right?
Yeah,
It's
it's
never
like,
gonna
it's
stop.
never ending. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so any guys or gals listening, don't give up. It's like just those little seeds that you're planting every day. Let's say you just make it 5 minutes in meditation, where it's just frustrating. Your body's like, oh, I gotta pee, I gotta get coffee, I gotta eat. Yeah, so that's really cool.
Well, a couple of things that I think, in that vein of people who are just starting out, like to me, what makes the most sense is I have two main points that I think will change the game, cut the learning curve in half, big time. Maybe three. We'll see as I'm talking if I figure out the third one. Yeah. So the first one is don't set too long of a meditation time. We always want to jump in and do too much. I would rather see someone meditate for 3 minutes every morning, but pour all of their effort into consistency, saying, I'm going to do this for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 3 minutes a day. Everyone can do that, right? As long as you show up with that consistency, that's going to start ingraining those mental patterns that start to cause you to look at yourself a little differently and provide that space. So much more important to do it daily, again, even just for 3 minutes, than it is to try to do 20 minutes for 3 days in a row and then you get burnt out and you don't want to do it anymore. So much more powerful. The second reason that is so important is because as you get going, doing that consistently, you're going to start getting pleasure out of meditating. You're going to start looking forward to doing it. It's not a chore anymore. And that's really what I think is the most effective meditation, is something where you're actually trying to connect with a level of appreciation. You're trying to connect sitting there in silence with some sense of being able to enjoy this experience, of taking this time out to actually care for yourself and feeling how good it feels to take care of yourself and to let go and trust that you are blessed enough to not have to grab all your problems and think them through, that it can be done for you. You don't have to you don't have to be the one who does it all, right? And then, so I think those are probably the main two starting places that people need to do with meditation. And then the third one is also like not beating up on yourself, because it's so easy to think, well, I'm doing it wrong because I'm thinking the whole time. But Michael Singer, the author of The Untethered Soul, has this great little ditty I heard him talking about the other day, where he was saying that the witness consciousness within us is the thing that experiences all of it. So no matter what you're experiencing, how do you know that you're experiencing it? And it sounds like a pretty stupid question. Like when you're angry, how do you know you're angry? Well, because the awareness has the object of anger within it. And so if you're sitting in meditation and the mind is just noisy and throwing all these things out, just talking, but you're there watching it the entire time. And so it doesn't matter whether it's quiet. What you're practicing is being the one who's watching it. You're practicing being the witness, and that's all it takes.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And yeah, and I too, like you brought up in your life how like you were just stressing and like trying to force outcomes or just doing this life thing. And if you're looking for something else or you're tired of your same old life, you can do as many things as you want, but until you shift your inner self, I think you're still going to find yourself in that same revolving door. I mean, that was like with my life. It was like, oh, let me move and that'll fix all my problems, and then all of a sudden a year later, you're like, oh shit, I hate all this stuff too.
Yeah.
Where I'm just bored or whatever it is.
Wherever you go, there you are, right?
Yeah.
There's the old parable of the tribe who has a wanderer come in and there's like, I'm looking for a new tribe, and the chief's like, well, what was the tribe that you came from like? He's like, oh, it's terrible. Everyone was just annoying and they complained all the time. Blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, that's interesting. It's the same here. And the wanderer moves on. The second wanderer comes up and asks the same question. He says, oh, the tribe I came from was beautiful. I loved all the people there and everyone was so nice and caring for each other. And the chief's like, oh, cool. It's the same here. It's because you're creating it. You're taking yourself everywhere you go. So don't try to move the furniture of the world around, right? Work on yourself and then let that just naturally evolve as it is meant to.
Yeah. So I love that. So just start with like 3 minutes for Pete's sake, and let go of this. Oh, I see this end result that this person is showing me like on YouTube or whatever you're watching about it. this big guru. But if you hang out with some of those gurus I have, or even like millionaires or whatever, it's like, they're just normal people, and all they did was start little habits that grew into a bigger, reality for them. And I think a 3-minute starting point is great. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then not beating up on yourself either with like, I'm not doing it right. Oh, why isn't this working? I also read in a book.
Sorry to interrupt you, but if you do start feeling those thoughts coming up about like, oh, I'm not doing it right and blah, blah, blah. Well, hold on a second. Aren't those just thoughts too? Can't you just be aware that those are thoughts, or do you immediately buy into it and believe them? So that's like that difference of starting to recognize that everything that happens on the screen of your awareness is an object. Don't be object identified. Be the space that is aware of all the objects within it, and that includes all the stories you tell about yourself.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I just want to think about that for a second.
Yeah. And I think involved with this too is sort of like this, getting started with meditation, you might be looking for some end, right? Like this person was able to manifest this money, or this person was able to manifest a relationship. And if I meditate, I can get there too. But really, meditation is going to lead you so far inside yourself that you don't need the external thing at all. Now, of course, that's fun to play in the external world, and those things will end up coming to you more easily and without any effort at all if you let go into them. But it's not about the thing. It's about who you become along the journey, and the self, that the state of mind that you can inhabit and embody on a daily basis. Like, coming from desire is that you're always unhappy until you grab this thing. And this is really the opposite of that.
Oh yeah. That's so powerful. Holy cow. I mean, that awareness is the thing that you're striving for. It's not, I used to think that it was the things. I remember I got this new Mustang, 800 horsepower, it was a Roush and all this stuff. And I remember sitting inside of it, and no one's there, and I'm like, this is never going to end, and it's like, what am I truly seeking? Because, as kids, I think we're trained to, oh, here's the toy. Now you can be happy. Oh, I'm crying again. Okay, here's the iPad or whatever you need to be happy. And you constantly grow up thinking that you need something outside of yourself to feel that happiness. But true manifesting is being happy before you get the thing, right? And if you're looking for a way to change into that and to be happy with your life and stop depression and all that stuff, meditation is one of them. To me, it's like the most powerful thing on the planet. To access that, and then realizing that it might take a little time though. You can't undo, like you said, like a 60-year-old or 30-year-old or whatever age. You're talking about years of conditioning.
It's about being patient with yourself, and I like to kind of personify, like create these characters of the different thoughts in my head. So for example, let's just continue with that beating up on yourself, like, oh, I'm not doing it right because, well, I'm whatever. Can you see who's saying that? Like, think about that for a second. Who's the character that's saying that inside of you? It's that judgmental parent. And maybe it's like your judgmental father or mother or someone who's saying you're doing it wrong. And it's like, couldn't you come from a place of like, oh, maybe you have improvement to do, right? We're not trying, this isn't about blinding yourself from where you need to make changes and where you need to grow and evolve and things like that. But it's about doing so really soft and compassionately, and doing it from a place of trying to understand what's happening rather than trying to force change. And forcing change is so cumbersome. It takes so much effort, but being kind and soft with yourself, seeing that inner child and wanting to like hold it and love it and care for it, which, hey, that's vulnerable, right? So many people are going to resist that. And even just hearing that might be like, oh yeah, it's too soft for me. That's the work though. Because when you come close together with yourself and heal that relationship that you have with yourself, you become one. You're no longer two. You're not fragmented. And again, that's one of the, to me, that is the work, right? Capital W work. That is the work of spiritual growth, spiritual alignment.
I think that's even the key to why maybe there's so many women that are more into this space than guys, because of that, becoming vulnerable. Yeah. Wow. And I think that awareness is really a place, like if you're going to start meditation, if I would have known, like it's not the meditation, or it's not the thoughts, it's not this old person I used to be, it's the awareness of that old person. And then recognizing that, okay, I don't want to be like this anymore. what's the person that I do want to be like, or who is the guy or a girl that I want to be. And then I even did this exercise where I made a list of like all the characteristics of this new person I would like to become.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the meditation, when I would notice these thoughts come of fear, anxiety, stress, worry, problems from the day before, it was like, okay, I'm aware of that. Be compassionate for myself for realizing that, okay, this has been years in the making.
Mm-hmm.
And then being aware of it and okay, I don't want these thoughts. I want these other thoughts. And then it's like a slow shift of you're replacing your old self with this new idea. And
Yeah.
it's still just a character. It's still just a character.
Yeah.
You're not even that either.
Well, coming from that place of awareness allows you to choose. Before that, you didn't really have that space to choose. But it's like, who do you want to hang out with? Do you want to hang out with that new version of yourself that's awesome? Or do you want to hang out with the old version that's like down on himself and small and all that other thing? But here's the thing, and I think this is the even deeper question, is why are you pulled to the small version of yourself? Why do you keep getting pulled back to that? And it's sort of a deception that we say, I completely don't want that. I'm not getting anything out of it. And it's victimizing me by its presence. It's like, no, there is a very subtle and secret pleasure that you get out of choosing smallness. It's easier, it's cheaper, and it's easier.
Oh, wow.
But it's not, obviously it's not for your greatest good. So recognizing that actually frees you to recognize why you're choosing it over and over again, instead of feeling like that's automatically happening and that you're the victim to that choice being made for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think for me too, like true liberation from my past was when I accepted it and realized that I wouldn't change a hair on anyone's head because it led me to where I'm at now.
Absolutely.
And truly accepting that old person that I used to feel so shameful and guilty and like, blaming everybody for my problems and all that stuff, like recognizing that guy like was really necessary, and then realizing that the duality of life is life, and yeah, there's a really big shift for me as well.
Yeah. So
Now,
can I ask you, what was your biggest barrier to getting into meditation? Like, where do you feel the biggest sticking point when you were on your journey?
yeah, it's a good question. For me, I was just so sick and tired of the story and the play I was in, and
Mm-hmm.
it was just like, okay, I built up this, for me, I built up like this really nice life that was supposed to be like this American dream, and it was everybody's, when I was younger, this is how you should be, have the house and business and all those different things. But I just wasn't happy, and you brought up like not following your path. And I felt like, okay, if there really is another path for me, it's like, well, for me anyways, I had a near-death experience.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people don't have that, but it was like this realization that and I had it when I was a kid too, like you brought up, there's just something inside of me that said that there's something more to this life.
Mm-hmm.
There's something else out there. And I think that curiosity, it was really the curiosity, because I went full balls to the wall in like every other area of life, adrenaline junkie, addictions, all kinds of different things. And it was like that curiosity of life, like there has to be more than this, and I was actually talking to a kid. He was 21 years old, and he was in school for marketing, and I was just drawn to him. I don't know why, but he was a friend, and I was at a family dinner thing with their family, and he was talking about college and all these things he wants to do, and he ended up killing himself the next day.
Really?
Yeah. And
Wow.
he was so depressed in his life that he felt that that was the only way out. And for me, like, it was just like, oh my God, like, I can't wait anymore. Like, I have to get out of this life. And like, that's the stuff that drives me, like teaching younger people or people in general, like there is another path, and you can go as far down that path as you want. Like every other path, like led me to a rock bottom,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm successful now. Well, I'm still not happy, and it's like every other avenue in my life was like this tunnel that had a dead end.
We're
This was
always
the only, Yeah.
we're always seeking ourselves out in these things. And so we're always going to reach those dead ends. And it's like, stop looking for it where it isn't, right? Go in and find yourself where you are.
Yeah. But, it's like, you don't have to do that, like you can stop wherever you are and say like, okay. And for me, like the sticking point for meditation was, I got into it and I started asking the universe, like, okay, I know there's a creative intelligence out there. I know that I started from one cell, and all the information for my whole body was in that one cell. So I know that there's some type of creative intelligence in this universe. If you're real, put something in front of me that is wide open and I will walk through it. And sure enough, Dispenza came into my life and meditation. And it was like what you mentioned, where at first it was so uncomfortable. And I thought, oh, I'm beating myself up. It's not right. But it was that, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks in where I just said, you know what, I'm going to do this. I see all these results that people are getting. And that was like the curiosity to me, healing and all this stuff going on. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to keep at it, and then that transition of, oh, wow, I got done with that meditation. I feel freaking great, and it was like what you said, all of a sudden you're like, that was actually really pleasurable, and then you kind of get addicted to that, and it's like you're chasing this curiosity of like, how much deeper can I go? So yeah, so that was my thing. It was like, that's a lot actually, but
well, it just becomes a part of who you are at that point. Like, I'm sure for you at this point, you would never go back to a life without meditation. And that's how I feel, right? Like, it's just become such a staple because I know how fulfilling it is for me. I know what it does for me. And I've had periods where I've come off of meditation and then, because there's like a certain sense of, well, before I go into that, actually, let me kind of like lay out this paradigm, for example. Meditation is sort of just this consistent time frame of intention of recognizing that you're the witness of your thoughts. Well, recognition is the practice throughout the day. So you're just continuously recognizing. So there's an argument that you don't need to meditate if you're continuously recognizing throughout the day. However, every time I go back to that formal practice, I realize that the depth that's achieved from that consistent time applied just to recognizing exclusively and quieting the mind exclusively to be the witness has that power in your life. Everything goes smoother in it. So yeah, I think that's like one thing that, you need both. You need to have it throughout the day, but you also need to have those really hyper-focused times of just, no matter what thought comes up, it's not more important than my intention to be the witness. I'm not going to let any of these thoughts stick to me. I have to let them be here instead of getting sucked into them.
Yeah. And that's funny you brought that up because I'm actually in that stage now of realizing that actually my whole day is a meditation. It's like,
exactly.
And it's just that awareness of things, and so I was driving to PA. I actually told you this story, and my car broke down. And my initial thought, I was having all kinds of issues with this same car, and I like hit my steering wheel for a second. There's a friend there, and I was like freak, like cussed, and it was like it only lasted about maybe a minute. Where I was just really frustrated. And I was like, wait a minute. Okay. I'm sure there's something beautiful that's going to come out of this, and I ended up calling a friend after the tow truck guy came and everything. And he told me a story of something similar. And it ended up being the best thing that happened in their whole trip that they had, that their car broke down. And sure enough, man, that night was so beautiful. I got invited to this Thanksgiving dinner with the family I never met. And it was like the most amazing connections. Now I'm like really good friends with this couple. And it's like, and in my life, it's like being aware that even the stuff that I deem good or bad, it's just something that's made up in my mind.
It's
the
label, you're labeling it as good or bad. Yeah.
And so not only am I labeling myself as good or bad and whatever I'm doing, it's like, I'm not allowing for life to just unfold. And so grasping a hold of that awareness of yourself, your life, things, and letting go of that attachment of good or bad, and just allowing, because if I look back into my life and look at the worst thing that happened to me, whatever that is, actually, that was like the most beautiful thing that ever happened to me, and it's like, so it's just all about the awareness and how you're perceiving things. And that meditation, that initial meditation, I think allows you that small space to become aware of that. And that's when the magic starts happening.
Exactly. Yeah. It's there's nothing wrong with anger or any of the negative emotions. Actually, if you make them wrong or make them into problems, that's when they get sticky, because now you're trying to push them away. You're saying this is bad. And it's a great kindness to yourself to say it's okay to be angry. Like there's nothing. But here's the question: if you're okay being not okay, are you not okay, or are you okay?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's sort of, it gets behind it. So it's like, it doesn't, you can play with polarity, right? In the world, you play with duality of hot and cold and up and down and forward and backward and life and death. You can play with these polarities without getting stuck and attached by saying one is good and one is bad. It gives you that freedom that whatever life is calling for in the moment, you're able to play the role that you need to play, instead of being that tight, rigid thing that breaks when the storm comes through.
Yeah. So talking about all this awareness and stuff. So now that you're in this process of continuing to get to know yourself better and being okay with life, how do you deal with negative people and maybe old friends or paradigms that you allow into your life? How do you deal with that? Because I know a lot of people are in an environment that isn't conducive for them to be in a peaceful state or meditate. How do you deal with negative in your life?
Yeah. So I guess the first thing I'll say is, there's a lot of that, the idea going around that, you are the 5 closest people to you, you are the accumulation of the 5 closest people to you. And if you have toxic friends, you need to, move on as quickly as you can, and blah, blah, blah. And that's true to an extent, because your environment is definitely influencing you. You can't escape the fact that the environment around you is having an effect on who you are on a daily basis. But I would so much rather you get behind the environment and become the creator, rather than waiting to change the environment in order to allow you to feel a certain way. Mm-hmm. So obviously, if you're in a truly toxic situation, maybe the best move is just to move on. But I think the bigger thing is, why are you getting triggered by this negative thing that's happening out there? So for example, say I'm in the grocery store, or I'm like driving down the road and someone cuts me off or something like that, and I want to get angry. Well, maybe the other person was wrong. Like objectively, they were wrong. The question is, why did I have to get angry about it? Because that's not necessary. Someone else who was in the car and had that happen to them wouldn't get angry. So that's a choice that I'm making. Why am I doing that? And that's part of that self-exploration. What you'll find as you start to handle negativity by looking at it as the mirror that's reflecting something back about you, about your reaction to it, rather than trying to change the mirror by judging and condemning and blaming the negative people out there, quote unquote, the quicker you're going to start releasing that attachment to those stories that you're playing. And as soon as you do that, your energy is changing. And that means that the magnetism that is attracting the events and circumstances and situations into your life, those are all going to change. And so if you start doing that, you start releasing the anger towards these people who are negative, or wanting to, for a while, I was in this state of that sort of that toxic positivity, where it was like, if someone's being negative, I want to be like, hey, you shouldn't be negative. And it's like, that's just terrible, right? Because you're not allowing the space for the person to be that way. You're actually being judgmental, which means you're not being positive in your judgment that they should be positive when they're being negative. Instead, drop the whole thing. Just be positive yourself. And what you'll find is life just becomes your friend. And it just gives you exactly what you need. The old falls away and the new comes into your life. And it's beautiful. And sometimes the people who used to be toxic have their own transformation in your experience and become someone positive. And I think that's really the key.
Yeah. So I love that. It can be a little challenge at first, accepting that stuff and changing the habit of getting pulled into that negativity. But if you stay consistent with, starting with a few minutes a day, 5 minutes and 10 minutes and 20 minutes, and all of a sudden that awareness becomes so great that your shift in your personal happiness and your energy will automatically, there's even science behind, we have it's like 4 feet out of our body. Like there's this magnetic field of energy that comes out of us. Mm-hmm. And you're either drawing from that, or you're producing a field, and the love energy and that kindness and compassion for others, and realizing that, I don't need to judge this person for being like that. They're running on a program too.
Exactly.
and how hard is it for me to change? How the hell am I supposed to change them?
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
like,
It's not your business, right? It's not your work.
yeah.
Yeah.
That was a
And
big,
that's so true about the energy field. I mean, and we can feel it. Like how much more small and constricted in like your chest do you feel when you're afraid or when you're angry? How much bigger and expanded do you feel when you're in love and joy and compassion? One of the best meditations I had was with my mentor in Florida. Woke up at 3 a.m., went to the beach and did a 4-hour Dispenza meditation, ending with the walking meditation at sunrise. And by the end of that meditation, it was something had clicked so incredibly for me. I felt my field taking up almost like the entire community. Like I felt the expansion so far outside of my body. It was a feeling that you can't really, it's ineffable. You can't really explain it. But if you experience it, it's life-changing. And then just having people look at you different, where you're walking into the grocery store and someone's like looking at you with like an acquisitive look on their face, like, wait, what, who are you? Like, why am I looking at you? That it's that energy feel. It's real, it's tangible, and you can sense it.
Real.
Yeah.
So when I do classes on this stuff, I talk about how when you walk into a room and someone's fighting, right? You know they're fighting. Like even if all of a sudden nobody's doing anything, there's this energy in the air, you know? Same thing with, I don't know, someone's making love or something and you walk in on them, you know, and you can't see anything.
Yeah.
But you can feel it, you know.
Wait, something's off here. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, just becoming aware of that, I think, is a big game changer. All right, man. So I know we're kind of getting up here in time, so I want to be respectful of that. But if you were talking to young people right now, or maybe a mom or dad, or just someone that's kind of entering into this curiosity space, which is a beautiful place to be, maybe what are some, like, I know you mentioned the 3-minute stuff, but what are some maybe some tips or something that you would give someone that's down this journey? Maybe a book, maybe your top favorite book or YouTube or video or something that you watched that was a big shift for you that someone could dive into?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the book's easy. I have a whole ton of list of books that I absolutely love. But there's a few that definitely stood out to me. One would definitely have to be Letting Go by David Hawkins. That book had a huge impact on me. If you really take what he's saying as like, this isn't just a theory or a philosophy, but like, this is practical. This is actually real. If you are willing to let go of your desire, then you're clearing the path for the desire to come to you. Your mind wants to tell you, if I don't desire it, then I won't get it. It's the exact opposite. Your desire is preventing it from coming. Yeah. And so like really so just
crazy.
It absolutely, yeah. I know, it's wild. So I really like that book a lot. There's a couple other ones that are great too. The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, which I had mentioned. I think that's very good for general, like understanding what all of the spirituality is about. I also really like Eckhart Tolle work, obviously Dispenza, Alan Watts, Anthony DeMello, Awareness. That's a great book. So there's a lot of places that people can start. And I'm sure in the show notes or something, if you want to list some other stuff, definitely. We'll have some resources for people to check out. As far as advice, I wanted to think about this because I think in the beginning of the journey is sort of it's the time when you have the most potential for rapid growth and change because it's so new, right? And anytime you're in the unknown, you're in new, the rate of evolution is sped up. Once, a master or a pro at something who's perfecting their craft, they're making incremental, small, tiny incremental changes. And that's why, you need the 10,000 hours or whatever. But that first exposure a couple times, you can grow so quickly. So I think there's a good chance for people to really take a huge leap forward if they're coming at it right. So like one of the things I really want to say is just reiterating, allowing the space for you to be imperfect. And that's really hard because the mind wants to say, if I'm not perfect, I'm not good enough. Your worth is sort of tied up in your performance of how you're doing. And that's going to get in your way so much. If you allow yourself to be imperfect, you allow yourself to be human, and don't judge yourself or condemn yourself, but just understand and be compassionate with yourself, your evolution is going to happen so much quicker. The things that are what you see as flaws within yourself will fall away, will just peel away without your effort, to the point where you catch yourself doing something that you wouldn't have done before. And that's the beautiful moment, right? When you realize that you've actually shifted in reality, in the real world, something has changed. So on that note, don't hide from your flaws. You know what I mean? Like, don't take them too seriously. Don't take them as, don't identify with them as this is who I am, but don't hide from them. Look at them, make sure you see them, and do so with a recognition that it's okay, right? It's okay to have flaws. And even if you repeat that in a meditation, almost as a mantra, like it's okay to have flaws, and sit with whatever emotions come up. Like, why do you want to resist that? It's okay for you to have flaws. It's okay for you to not be perfect. There's just this striving towards this external manifestation of yourself that you're attached to. And if you can let that go and just stop trying to be the thing that you think you should be, and just be who you are and let that evolve, you'll become that thing that you want and more. You'll go so far beyond it. So really, like, not collapsing into condemnation and self-judgment, that's so important for allowing yourself to evolve. And then, I think the one last thing I'll say on this topic is, especially for young people, I think the biggest thing is working on developing a deeper level of respect and reverence for life. That could be really hard. It's easy to just want to have fun and do something, like, for example, like I think we had talked about psychedelics a little bit before. Psychedelics, and they're super fun, right? And they could be really helpful tools for being able to grow your consciousness. But like, that's an example of something. It's like, you have to develop respect for that thing, because if you don't have the respect and reverence for it, you're going to abuse it. And so life is like that. The less you're respecting life, the more that you're sort of like abusing it on a subtle level. So it's just cultivating respect and reverence for life. It actually raises the ceiling on the total amount of joy and appreciation that you can feel for yourself and for life and for others. So respect is that thing that creates the space for more joy to fill it. It's not the joy itself, but it's the container that joy can come and fill in. So I think that's probably what I would say to people just starting out.
Yeah, it's all so beautiful, man. And I love all those books too. Yeah, it's really good, man. So I have a coaching call in a few minutes here. So
Cool.
I think we'll end it. And I will plug this in the beginning as well. But Fireside Wisdom podcast, Timothy's doing, and you guys go on YouTube, wherever you need to check out that stuff, and check that out. If you're interested in anything Tim's talking about, definitely I'll put some links down below where you guys can contact him. I know he does some coaching and stuff like that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I have so many questions that I wanted to touch on, but maybe we'll have you on again and
Absolutely
open up some other topics. But man, it was so good having you on here.
Thanks for having me, man. I had a blast. Definitely would be interested in coming back and having some more good conversations. I think it's awesome to be able to talk about this kind of stuff and share experiences. I love hearing like some of the stories that you were sharing about your life and how you dealt with meditation and the struggles and challenges you had. It's reaffirming when we can all kind of come together and recognize that we're all experiencing all of these things. And so it's nice to have community.
Yeah. And I think just reminding everybody that on the end of this spiritual path is things like healing people, healing yourself. I'm doing stuff now, like experimenting, leaving my body, like all kinds of cool, like lucid dreaming and all of a sudden you just start connecting to coincidences and magical stuff in your life. And this absolute love for life and yourself, is at the other side of this. So just keep going. Don't stop. And life is beautiful now. You don't have to chase it or go anywhere. And yeah, man. So really cool time. Thanks guys for joining in and plug into your life.
Thanks, Dylan. See you.